someone needs to speak for them. There's no army, there's no union on their behalf. There's a teachers union, but there's no one to speak for children, especially in education. If we don't speak for our children, they have no voice. They have absolutely no voice.
Moms for Liberty really worked miracles.
We have a crisis in America in public education. This is the future of our kids and our country.
You are joyful warriors.
And we are just getting started. Good morning and welcome to the Fire of Liberty show. This is episode 1 and we are excited to have you with us. Which you'll find in this new show that we have put together is stories from moms and dads that are out on the front lines fighting for America and for their children right now. We started Moms for Liberty almost 5 years ago now, and there are so many stories that I feel like have not been shared. And so each week we're going to come to you live Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. and bring you a mom or a dad to share their story. And we hope the story will inspire you and empower you to take action and stand up for the things that you believe in. And so today's our very first episode, and we invited Scarlett here. She is what I like to call the Wisconsin warrior, and you're going to learn today why she is just so amazing. So Scarlett, why don't you just say a few things about yourself, and then we'll get into some great stories about you.
Hi, Tina. It's great to be here at the launch of this show, and the studio is amazing. It's really, really beautiful, and I'm really excited for what we're doing with Moms for Liberty and a show that's going to celebrate regular moms like myself. That I went from driving my kids around. I'm a mom of 5 in a minivan to.
Wait, hold up. You're jumping into the story.
I'm going too fast.
We'll talk about this great studio that here in our office, Amy and Lisa built and put together. And, I'm so happy with
beautiful.
it.
It's beautiful.
It's interesting. This is a whole new experience for me, and I know probably for you. And to know what went into this, making sure the sound is right and the tech is right. Yes. And so it's been, and where everything is measured. And it's funny because for those of you that aren't podcast or, video experts, like even the shelves, I'm like, put the, eye level. I'm used to decorating my house. Yeah. And they're like, no, sitting in a chair level. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to the gentleman that that painting up there on the wall, if they can show it on the camera, I'm not sure. It might be just behind Scarlett's head a little bit. 2 weeks ago, that arrived in our office, and we have the best supporters in the entire country. This gentleman was a educator for 30 years, and he painted that for us. And he detailed in his letter what a lot of the things in the painting mean to him and his 30 years of being an educator. And so we thought it was important to include that in our new Fire of Liberty studio as we talk about kids and America and education. And so but let's get to you, because you are our guest. And I think we're going to get to your story. But first, I just wanted to ask you, let's start at the end and say, where were you last week, Scarlett Johnson?
Oh, where was I last week? Well, last week, hard to believe, I was in the West Wing. We were in D.C. First, it started off, we were in front of the Supreme Court, supporting the Maryland Moms for Liberty chapter there, because they had a case that was actually being argued in front of the Supreme Court about books like Pride Puppy, very inappropriate books for children. And what was great is to see Moms for Liberty members from across the country drove out to support Rosalind and to support the chapter. And so from there, I took an Uber and I was in the White House, so it was fantastic. I was able to be a guest of Carolyn Leavitt, the press secretary for the White House. And I felt like, pinch me. This is like a dream come true. And I got to have a tour of the White House. I got to see all these portraits, to see the office of the FLOTUS of Melania Trump. And then I got to meet a lot of the communication staff behind the scenes.
Scarlett, what did you bring into that communication staff behind the scenes?
Now, this was fun. I made sure to bring Moms for Liberty goodies, special little packages for my friend Ellen, who had arranged everything. And for Carolyn, some Moms for Liberty mug and Moms for Liberty, our Post-it notes, our chapsticks, things like that. And all of the staffers loved it. They loved the chapsticks and the pens and the little notepads. And so I handed those out. And then I had a bunch of Moms for Liberty signs like Save Girls Sports and XXXY, stuff like that. And they loved it. And I basically ended up handing out all of my signs, and they were taping them up. And so it was great to feel like the love that a lot of these younger women had for Moms for Liberty. Many of them don't have children, or they're just starting out their families, and they were recognizing how important the work that we do is, because they will one day have kids that will be attending schools, and they want schools to return back to focusing on excellence in education and not on woke indoctrination.
And so the end of that day in the White House, where were you?
You're
missing one of the most exciting parts of the story.
So yes, I was able to actually walk into a press briefing with Carolyn Levitt, to sit in on a press briefing, and Tim Pool was the guest that got to ask a question, and then I got to watch all of it in action. So usually that's something that you see on TV, but to actually be there and see it all happening. And then I went back with Carolyn, and we had a great conversation, and we talked about Moms for Liberty, and she was warm, and she's really smart. And everything that you see when you watch her on TV, she is just as cool, calm, collected, and intelligent behind the scenes, and everyone loves her.
So let's talk about, because I think that's fascinating. So here's Scarlett, mom of 5. You gave us a little glimpse of maybe what your life was like 5 years ago, but as of last week, you're in the White House, you're in the press briefing room, you're hanging out with Carolyn Levitt and other staffers in the White House. And of course, I know a lot about you, so I know all the other amazing things you've done over the last couple of years. But let's go back, because I think most moms that are listening, or dads, or people that are listening, may not think that they don't understand. They're like, oh, she's at the White House. You know, how do you get from mom of 5 in a minivan to the White House? So that's what I'm hoping we'll talk about a little bit, and your story, I think, is going to touch some people. And there's a few things when you were sharing your story with me that really jumped out at me. So I'm going to drive you to those, hopefully, in this conversation. So first of all, so you're in a minivan. You've got 5 kids. What are their ages? What are they now?
What are they now? They are 26 to 13. So
that's a wide range.
And when I started, they were very young. So I had kids, in elementary school, middle school, high school, and college.
And what is the thing that you went from, I would say, probably politically unengaged? Is that a fair statement?
Very fair statement. I didn't even know who my school board members were. I had never attended a school board meeting. I really didn't understand the dynamic. I voted in presidential elections, but, I really just wasn't that politically engaged. And so to go from that, somebody who isn't politically engaged, to where I was, my origin story starts, like many of our moms, with COVID.
Yes, and I do. A lot of people know that we launched in 2021, and so it makes sense if that's when a lot of moms got engaged. Why do you think a lot of moms got engaged during COVID?
They got engaged because our kids were hurting. And our kids, you think back, because it used to be that the left were like, for the children, everything for the children. But the children got left behind. The children got masked, isolated, treated like vectors of disease. The children were forgotten, and everything was shut down. So I was with my kids. We were all sheltering in our home, and I saw what began as, okay, this is just 2 weeks to slow the spread, turn into months, and anxiety, depression. My kids' world was turned upside down, and no, it seemed like no one cared.
So was there a moment? Was this you think a period of time thing, or was there a moment where you're like, this is it. I've got to do something. I don't know what it is, but I got to do something. Or did it just kind of unfold over months?
A little bit of both. It unfolded over months because you're engaged in little by little, you're doing the research, and then you're attending all these virtual meetings, like in your community, trying to figure out, is school going to open? Is my daughter going to be able to play basketball? Is she going to be able to go to ballet classes? Is my son going to be able to go to college? And so you're looking into that. But then the big moment was in August when my public school system in my school district in Mequon, they did a virtual school board meeting. You know, we all tuned in. Like they actually, I think the whole like system felt like couldn't even support how many parents tuned in. And they announced that they were not going to open schools and that the school board had abdicated.
Just 2020 or 2020?
2020 in August of 2020.
August 2020. Here in Florida, Governor DeSantis had come in June and said, we're opening schools and we're opening them in August. He gave us the flexibility to open the first week, the second week, or the third week, but we were opening schools in August in Florida.
We were watching from afar. Yeah. Like loving Florida, wishing some people even moving to Florida because of it, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people had a lot of Florida envy during that year. So you're in Wisconsin during this time, and it is 2020 fall, time for schools to open, and you get online and your school board says, we're not opening. They're not opening. We don't know when. Is that like,
yeah, they said they don't know when, and they decided that they weren't going to vote as board members anymore. They abdicated that responsibility to the superintendent.
Oh, Scarlett. That exact thing happened on my school board. So I was sitting on a school board at that time. And well, it didn't happen because I literally put my hands down and slammed them on the table during that meeting because our school board was leading in that. We were trying to decide if things got really, really bad and we couldn't convene in any way, shape, or form because at that point, you know, you didn't really know what was happening. Who was going to be the one person that had the authority to make decisions on behalf of everyone else until we could convene again? And obviously, it's the elected school board chair, right? We're all elected officials.
Yes.
We've been given power by the people. The school board chair has been elected by the elected officials. There's nobody better. Nope, my board was doing the same thing. And one person on our board looked at me and said, she said, I would trust the superintendent over any of our elected officials any day. And that's when I was like, what? We have been given the authority by the people. He's a bureaucrat. I loved our superintendent, but he shouldn't have that authority, unchecked authority without any people or power of the people through their elected officials to hold them accountable. So, you know, we were experiencing that in Florida also, and I think it's a systemic problem through school boards in general.
And then the superintendent immediately said, well, I'm going to rely on the county health department.
Oh, so he didn't even want the responsibility,
so
right?
It was just
school board passed the buck.
Abdicated. Right. Yeah, they passed the buck. And then the health department, well, I'm going to look at, you know, what Fauci says.
Yeah, everybody went up, CDC, whatever, and then you've got this man up there in D.C. putting on 27 masks.
We're supposed to trust the experts, but turns out we were right about everything and they were wrong about everything. And that's the lesson that I have internalized, and I think that everyone should, that you have to trust, especially as parents. We knew what was right. We knew what the science was. I'd gone from stay-at-home mom to investigative journalist to I'm reading medical journals, and you know, my son is in medical school, so you know, I'm like, hey, explain this to me. Like I need to. So you know what? I can read, and that's what I would say in school board meetings. Listen, you're not an expert. Well, I can read.
School board meeting. So let's talk about this. So you have that school board meeting. They're not going to open schools. I'm sure some things unfolded and happened. You're becoming more educated. You're reading medical journals now, which, you know, you'd much rather be driving your minivan, I think, and going to soccer games.
Yes.
But at some point, you decided you were going to attend your first school board meeting and speak.
Yes. Yeah, we did a lot of the virtual, you know, like the meetings were virtual. Finally, they had to, by April 2021, they had to go in person because we had been protesting saying these meetings need to be in person. So I am going to be the first speaker among the parents, and I prepare my speech. I time it to 3 minutes.
Hold on. At this point, have you ever spoken in public?
No.
No public speaking
No.
classes? No.
Mm-mm. Nope, no, and I had never wanted to. I had never had that desire. And
we have one chapter, a former chapter chair, I think in Georgia, that had told me she had never used a microphone, and her school board speech actually went viral around the world, and that was her first time ever speaking into a microphone. Do you put yourself in that category, or?
Yes, yeah. So, well, I actually threw up before my speech. I was so nervous. Yes,
So did you throw up in the
bathroom?
In the bathroom.
Yep, okay. I went in the bathroom and threw up, and then like had to gargle and like steady myself, and because it is a
Is
big
that from nerves.
From nerves. Nerves.
I throw up from migraines, but I've not thrown up from nerves. So you're so nervous,
and the room's it's packed. You have one side all masked, and the other side, Team Sanity, just sort of like we're here for our kids.
Did you have anybody with you, a good friend?
Oh yeah, yes, spouse? we had a large group. We had a large group with us, and my
anybody
husband
with you
was
in
there.
the bathroom while you're throwing up?
Oh yes, of course, Amber. She knows who she is. So
our Amber?
Amber, a different Amber from Ozaki, but. Amber Schrader. But so then I went to give this speech, and it was powerful. It was really powerful. And people were crying. And it was because it just came from everything inside of me, that this was about my children, our community's children, the children of America, the children of the world. Like someone needs to speak for them. There's no army, there's no union on their behalf. There's a teachers union, but there's no one to speak for children, especially in education. If we don't speak for our children, they have no voice. They have absolutely no voice. And they were being masked, isolated, forced to eat lunch against the wall, walking around with plexiglass, put on 28-day holding periods because of if they were exposed to COVID. It was insane. Schools became juvenile detention centers. It was intolerable, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I had to fight back, and we had to do something. And I don't care. Why are you nervous when you go speak at a school board meeting? Because you're with your community, the people that you see in the grocery store, the people that you run into, the kid that your kids used to have play dates with until half of the community no longer wanted to do that because they were afraid. They were, and maybe not necessarily just afraid of COVID, but afraid of what would happen if their kids sneezed and then they were couldn't go to school or anywhere for 28 days. So everyone's trying to be protective. And we just had to end the insanity. It was insane.
So you're terrified, you're throwing up, you speak, people are crying. How do you feel after?
Empowered.
You're ready to do it again.
Oh, yeah. Empowered.
And how much hate did you get from that speech?
I got a lot of hate, but I got a lot of love. So it's balanced,
What's the hate look like at this? I know what the hate looks like now for us.
That
but what
I
does it
wanted
look like
to
at
kill
that
old
point?
people, that I didn't care about children, that I didn't care about teachers, that I didn't care about the community, mainly that I wanted the elderly to die, that I was selfish, that I just wanted to put my kids somewhere, all of which wasn't true, I loved spending time with my children, but it wasn't healthy what was happening. It wasn't healthy that they were, and we know that now. Mm-hmm. Now, we knew it then, but now all the facts are laid bare. I mean, look at the mental health of kids that were really affected by COVID, and the learning loss, and the social anxiety. I mean, we will, and I said this over and over again in school board meetings, what is happening right now is going to change a generation of children. And, I don't forgive them.
The learning loss alone. I mean,
they're not asking for forgiveness anyway, but I don't forgive them, and they're not even asking.
No, people like Randy Weingarten are actually coming out and saying, what did she say recently? I was never in support of closing schools or something of that nature. And somebody called her out. Did you see that
Jennings.
on X?
Oh, yeah.
Who called her out?
Scott Jennings on CNN.
Yeah.
And he right to her face. And you know what? I have a kid with learning disabilities. I have a daughter that had a speech impediment. And
masks were really good for
really good.
Students with speech impediments.
Virtual and masked. Like you wearing a mask, but through a camera. This is the kind of insanity that we dealt with, and now we deal with a lot of the gender insanity. But
you know what I've noticed, especially some of our strongest chapter leaders that are still in it and have been from day one. I mean, this is a long time to be in the battle still at that level. And they are the ones with a lot of them have special needs kids. And, you know, I may not have known that in the beginning when they joined us and came on board, but as you get to know them more, the children that were harmed the most during that period were special needs children. And mama bears came out. You know, I'm not a huge fan of that term all the time, mama bears. We haven't really adopted it much at Moms for Liberty for some reason. But, I mean, that's what happened. The bear and all of us came out when we saw our children hurting. You know, I had a middle school child when all of that happened, and my school board voted to not make masks optional and keep kids 6 feet apart. And he's a very introverted child who is already somewhat struggling in some areas socially. And I pulled him out the next day. Same school system I graduated from, you know, my other children graduated from. I cried. I was on the school board. Like I didn't want, you know, I believed in our system a lot, in our school system, and it was devastating to me, but I knew what that would do to him. He was already struggling with, it was terrible, you know, it was just terrible. OCD, to the level of, you know, the washing and the sanitizing of hands. Yeah. It was bad. It would make me cry to watch my son in that. And so I knew if he put on that mask every day, all day, he would hide behind it. He's an introvert. He didn't want to communicate with others, and I just couldn't allow it. So
some of my kids my daughter that was in high school actually got 2 jobs because no one wanted to work, and she
good for her.
She had 2 jobs and she functioned, and she just found a way through it. I had another child that went through severe social anxiety, and it was a long road, you know, what happened to her, because it was the wrong thing to happen at the wrong time, you know, where she lost everything, her friends, her social network. And there was a lot of criticism, like, oh, you just want your kid to go to prom, or well, those are probably the most impactful, important things in your child's life. These are the things that kind of define them. Playing sports, sometimes that's their opportunity to go to college. All of these things are important. And we know that now. The loss of all of their social activities, all of their social skills, that was a huge loss. Then my youngest, and I know you'll find this hard to believe, she was actually staging protests at recess with masks, and she would steal all the masks from the office, come home, and her pockets full of masks. Goodness. And she's like, "Mom, I took all the masks, and now they can't give them to the kids." So she's my youngest, so she was awesome, and I was like, high five, that's great. So different kids reacted differently, but they were all affected, and they are. My husband and I were just talking about this. Our kids are still, in some way, the scar of what happened is still there. It will always be there.
The emotional scar, but then the national numbers. You know, we saw the national report card come out, and the kids are not making up the learning loss. And I feel like a lot of us were waving the banner back then about the most harmed kids, and it wasn't just special needs kids, but kids in inner cities and Black and Hispanic children. Like the learning loss there, they're not recouping, and that's a whole generation, and possibly generational effects that are going to have a problem. And so,
I'll tell you, in Milwaukee, we actually made headlines because Black school children in Milwaukee are proficient reading at a 4% level. Only 4% of Black school children can read a grade level MPS, and these are 4th graders. So
shame
guess what?
On
they were in kindergarten during
leaders.
COVID.
Like shame on the education.
They didn't learn to
there.
read.
It's terrible. And if you can't read, you can't learn. You can't learn anything. And where are you going to go in life? And we can spout studies here all day long about how the chances of the number of those children that are going to end up in prison, and you're just sentencing them to a life of struggle and pain, and it's criminal.
Yes.
It really is. It's criminal. So let's talk a little bit more about your journey. So you speak at the school board meeting, goes well, you're feeling empowered. And then I believe is it the recall or the school board?
Yeah, we
run
start
comes
the
next?
recall. I mean, we actually had we ran one candidate and he won. He got the most votes, so we were feeling even more empowered by April 2021.
So you had a candidate. You got you and your team of
moms and
warriors
dads,
of
yep.
parents say there's a seat open. We're going to support this candidate and we're going to get him elected to our school board. But that's just one seat.
That's just one seat.
And so that happens.
Yes.
And so good job, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were happy, but still the vote was 6-1 to keep masks on.
Okay.
And
so now you got 5 more school board members to take care of.
Yes.
And what happens next?
So what happens next is we realize that despite winning this election, despite all of the news, all of, even this was nationwide
And
news.
you know who your school board members are now,
Yeah,
don't you?
I know who they are. And they know who I am. And
I remember putting a post up on our national Facebook page, like 3 months into launching, and saying, do you know who your school board members are? And people were like, no. And then, I do now. I do now.
I sure
Like,
learned.
You sure learned who they were.
I sure
Okay,
learned.
so
and
6
we were
people you want to
regular.
get rid of.
Yeah. But so we thought, okay, they're going to listen to us now. No. And they still would not vote. They still would not take back that voting power.
Wow.
They were still arbitrary guidelines for COVID. And they would have... There was even a case where in a elementary school, all the kids were masked for a Halloween party, but all the teachers weren't. And
Okay,
the
great.
teachers...
We saw those pictures.
Yeah.
Maybe not from your school, but what's her name in Georgia? And, it's just despicable.
Yeah.
Okay, so what?
So we decided to recall 4 school board members.
What's that take? What is a recall for a mom or a dad that's listening right now, and what they may not know what a recall is?
So recall is basically because the elections had already happened, there's certain statutory guidelines. There were 4 school board members that we could statutory recall according to Wisconsin law. And what that is you force another election. You recall them, and now they have to run again in a special election.
So we, the people in this community, have decided these 4 people are doing a really bad job not representing us. They're representing us poorly, and so we can. What do you have to do to get somebody recalled?
So first of all, we had to meet for months and organize and decide, is this what we want to do? Because it's a big step and it's going to take a lot of work. You only have 60 days to get 16,000 signatures. And this is a community of
16,000 signatures in 60 days. Guys, that is not easy to do.
Not in a small
when you run
community.
for office here in Florida, I think I had to get 1,000 signatures. It takes you months to get, because they have to be, I'm sure they have to be qualified signatures.
Yes.
It can't just be, everyone is checked if the signature's not right, if they're not
Yes.
if they have to be a registered voter, I'm
Yes.
sure. All of those things.
You have to get their address, their phone number. You have to have them sign. And we were doing 4, so they had to sign 4 sheets.
Oh my goodness.
And so we had a little trick with that. We would say, can you sign? Oh, and wait, there's 3 more. Just go ahead real fast. Do the other 3.
Yeah, and there's no real fast because you have to have every bit of it filled out. And they
Everything.
are sticklers. At least
They are
here they are.
sticklers.
They'll throw them out for anything.
Yep. And actually, when we had all of them, we had committees with stacks of these where moms would get together till late at night, going through line by line, making sure, oh, wait, they didn't check this. We have to go drive
How many
back.
people you have working on this?
Oh, we had about 30 moms.
Okay.
And some dads, too.
Yeah.
Some dads.
Okay.
It was...
And so you need 16,000 signatures in 60 days. Did
in
you get
60
them?
days. We did. We got them.
And where are those 4 school board members?
Well, most of them, so we finished, we did the recall. We were laughed at. We were made fun of. We were standing on the side of the road to get signatures. We stood in front of the public library, in front of grocery stores. We went to churches. We knocked every door in our community, probably twice. We went on radio, everything. And a lot of the left just made fun of us and thought this ridiculous until we actually got the signatures. One of the best days of my life, because it was right before the due date that we got the signatures, and then we got more. We actually got 400
what was that
more.
moment like? Because I can't imagine the amount of work that went into this. And, and if everyone can think about the heartache and the pain, everything you're going through, these people, your elected officials are not listening to you. You get a win with one, they're still not listening to you. You go through all this work, and then you realize you have met the requirement.
So we had to we're always counting and going through and making sure. And so I think it was the 2 days before the deadline, we're standing out in front of, on the road with our folding table and our signs that we duct tape. And the count comes in. My friend announced, we have the signatures right now. And there was lines of cars to continue to sign because the momentum had hit.
So great.
So we're like, we're going to get more. Great. We need more. We need a buffer. We need more. Yeah. But by the end of that night, we had 400 more. So we had 16,400 signatures.
So great.
We were crying. We were crying. We were dumping water on each other. We ordered pizza.
It's like you were a sports team that just won the Super Bowl.
Our kids were there cheering with pom-poms. I have pictures of it. It was we were weeping, hugging each other, crying. We did it. It was such a win for our kids. And national news the next day when we delivered these to the Mequon-Thiensville School District office, we had national news everywhere following us around, AP News, following our journey, watching us turn them in, all of this stuff. And we were so proud. And then came the really hard part.
The really hard part?
The really hard part was the special election that had to occur you had now a really short period of time to run 4 people against those 4 school board members. And that's when the teachers' unions, Democrat Party got involved. Well over $200,000 was spent to defeat us. And the things they said, the headlines, lawsuits, we were unprepared for.
There's no machine like the teachers union tied to the Democrat Party and what they can unleash on 30 banter of moms and a few dads.
It could be soul crushing if you're not strong enough. Really, I was the Young Turks had a podcast about me and called me a white supremacist. I'm Puerto Rican, anti-Semitic. My sister's Jewish. My kids went to Jewish day school. They said that I hated old people. Every terrible thing that you can say about somebody.
Did that impact you?
At first, this was the first time something like this had ever happened to me, and I cried and cried. And I was told by a lot of people, don't respond, don't say anything, even politically savvy people, because I did have people that were helping. But the chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party, Brian Schimming, at the time he didn't have that position. He was a mentor, and he just said, no, you had to fight. You had to fight back. And a lot of other people said fight back, and so I did. And I put out my own op-ed, and I started to do more media and defend myself, and I didn't roll over and take it. And that is really how I got to where I am now, surviving that. Because once the machine comes after you, and they unleash an arsenal, everything they have, and you're still standing, I realize now there's nothing they can do. They have done their worst, and I survived. And that makes you so strong. That is a superpower. And I think if there's one superpower I have, it's that I know I can survive anything that they say.
How did that impact, so all those attacks, how does that impact your family, your sister, who you said your sister was Jewish?
It was hard. It was hard on my family, but when I refused to back down, and they saw the impact that had, and they were there with me. We'd go to the grocery store, and in person, online, the keyboard warriors, they say mean things. In person, all I had was thank you, hugs, thank you for what you're doing for kids, thank you. My kid, the stories that people would come up to tell me about their children, and how they felt no one was fighting for them. But when they saw me, they had the courage to fight, and they were just happy that there was someone that was willing to just take all the slings and arrows. And at some point, my dad's a U.S. Marine who re-enlisted after 9/11. So he's much older, and it took him like a year. They had to find his whole his files on microfiche. So he did 2. They called him Pops. He did 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. And so I just thought, he's the I love my dad, and I thought he's the bravest man I know, and when I wanted to quit, he's like, you can't quit, Scarlett. You're a hero. And if you quit, what message are you sending to your kids? What message are you sending to, because if you quit, then everyone will think, I can quit. I can quit too, like I had to. And I think that people talk about courage. They talk about what it's like to be brave, but you don't know what it means until you're there, and you have to make a choice. Like, do I stand? Do I take this? Or do I just go away quietly to a quiet life and forget about all of this? And I realized then, like, I have courage. I can be brave. And that's the message that I share. That you can think that you're nobody. Who am I? I'm just a mom. But you can make a difference if you're just brave enough to just take that chance, because so few people are. And when you do it, courage is contagious. Then one other person. And pretty soon you have an army behind you. And so I only like to talk about all the terrible things that happened, because I don't care. Now I'm here. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I don't read the comments. I don't read the comments anymore.
You don't?
No, I never do. I never read them.
I read almost every comment, even that comes to Moms for Liberty. I still read them all. I don't know why. Maybe
I never read the comments. People used to share them with me, and I said, stop sharing them. Like, I don't, because it's not real. It's astroturf. What's real, I will listen to a comment from someone who loves me and cares about me. That's from the heart. I don't take advice from people that hate me and who hate this country and who would harm my children. I don't take their advice. Why would I take the advice of crazy people? I don't let crazy people decide what I'm going to do. I decide that with my family. And I've said to you, I love what is in front of me more than I hate what's behind me. I'm not going to listen to people that their heart is full of hate and rage. And now I feel sorry for them. Yeah. I feel sorry for them, because for you to have that much hate in your heart, there's something bad happened. Something's wrong. And I want to pray for them, and I might have a little more sympathy for them if they weren't trying to destroy my country and take my children from me. But because they're doing that, I have to fight them.
Goodness, Scarlett, you are such a courageous example, and your story is it's similar to most of the leaders of chapters in Moms for Liberty. So I'm just so looking forward to more episodes of this podcast too, to dig in with some of our other moms, because it is what you've overcome it's no small feat, and our haters definitely pile on and they try to break us. And so I'm just so proud of you. I think it's a good time to for me to tell you how proud of you that I am. Let's talk a little, just touch quickly. So were you one of those 4 school board candidates? Is that when you ran?
Yes, I was a candidate, and I ran, and I lost. We have 42% of the vote. We ran as a slate, which I was kind of happy about, considering they had turned me into literal Satan. That 42% of people came out to vote for me. And what was really interesting, and I think a lot of other moms and dads who've run like I have, you never saw the candidates. They were never out in public. They never did anything.
They didn't have to be. They had all the money. You said $200,000 behind them, which in a school board race is astronomical. Most school board races aren't more than $5,000, and so they didn't have to.
We had rallies. We had support. It seemed like, wow, we've got this. The momentum we had, but then the numbers come in, and you're like, what happened? Like, where did that come from? And I realized that they were organized. They were so organized, and I'm like, that's what we're missing. We need to be as organized as this astroturf
enter stage movement. Moms for Liberty, right?
Enter stage Moms for Liberty. Enter Amanda Nidweski, who was a co-chair of Kenosha at that time. And after I'd lost, and I'm laying on the couch, and I'm like, I don't want to get up. in the morning. Like my husband took the kids to school.
So another low.
Yeah, another low. And she called me and she said, "Girl, lady, you're it's okay to feel bad about this, but God has a purpose for you. And you need to start a chapter of Moms for Liberty." And I was like, "Oh, that group from Florida I keep hearing about, I keep seeing on TV. Yeah, but aren't they just in Florida?" She's like, No, I have a chapter. We started a chapter. You need to start a chapter." And so I called y'all, and pretty soon, like I went to Tampa for the first summit, and I met my people. I met my tribe. I cried through most of that summit because it was like...
Did you really? That was a very emotional summit. That was the first time all of us got together, met for the first time. It was, we've had 3 summits since. We have one coming up in October again, but I don't think there's anything that can replace those 500 moms and a few sprinkled dads at the time.
Yeah.
The power that was in that room. There were some moments.
The last Sunday, I couldn't stop crying.
With Dr. Alveda King on stage. We had just been raked through the coals with all the names you were called nationally. We were called racists and all types of things.
And then you're sitting at a table. Oh, me too. Everything that happened. Oh, that happened to me. Oh, did this? No. And you realize, like, oh my gosh, it's the same playbook in every state. We all had war stories. We are the U.S. Marines of grassroots conservative. We are the U.S. Marines. Yeah. We had the same battle scars, the same stories, the same. And then you're like, well, what strategy worked for you? Or try this. This worked for me. Or just basically, I felt recharged. Yeah. Like my batteries were like, oh my gosh, on zero. You go to Summit. And boom.
It's a good time to plug for Summit, momsforliberty.org. Yes. That's not the point of this show, but Summit is going to be in Orlando this year. It's going to be bigger than ever, October 16th through the 18th. So, I
can't say enough good things about Summit.
If you're looking for your people, join us because it's remarkable.
I can't say enough good things about Summit.
So you get to Summit, you decide to start your chapter. You guys have had remarkable wins. And I want to focus now on school.
Then we focused on school boards. We focused on Wisconsin. So, okay, it didn't work out for me, but there are areas where it can work out, and we can build that infrastructure. We need to have our own coalitions. We need to know what's going on. We need to be able to inform. We need to be the boots on the ground. And there's 72 counties in Wisconsin. And school board, there's conservative areas all throughout Wisconsin, and we just need to organize.
Were you number 2? Because Kenosha was number 1.
Kenosha was number 1, Wood County, and then there was...
So number 3,
yeah,
you're number 3. Ozaki. And not to jump too far ahead, but sometimes it's fun to do this. How many chapters now?
22 now.
22.
And we have more coming online.
And after, so you're chapter chair, you guys win elections, you're sending us endorsements before. I remember this because we were like, maybe we should endorse in school board races in Moms for Liberty. Maybe that's a really good idea. and we just put out an all call to the chapter chairs. And I think you sent us like 30.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I thought we would have 30 nationwide. Yes. And you had, I think, 20 or 30 just from your county that first year.
Yeah. We had statewide leaders like, could you endorse me too? Like it was, and that's with Wisconsin. We've built a fabulous team in Wisconsin and a lot of them have been doing this for a long time, and a lot of new people, which is wonderful. It's nice to have the old salty Marines that have been doing this for a while, and then have the new recruits, and you need that energy. So it's been fabulous. We have a great
What's
team.
Been the win rate over the last 3 years for school board races?
It's been about 70%.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
So like you, like me, like you, I lost my 2020 school board race, and so it's amazing what we've been able to do, being losers.
Yes.
Right.
And then we started a state legislative committee last year, and this year you were there. We had our launch of we had our first legislative day, and it was amazing. All of the state officials that came said it was the best legislative day that they had ever attended, because they were informing us, but we were also informing them. And
for those that don't know, legislative committees, our chapters get together, one vote per chapter, and they form a committee statewide. And now not only are chapters fighting at the grassroots, local school board level, you're now fighting for state legislation.
Yeah.
And so they put together a day at the Capitol to meet with legislators, and that's what she's talking about. It was a very successful day.
It was
so great to be there with you guys and see the energy and the action that was happening.
And our leaders don't play. Like when we had all of them come in to talk, our moms are all there. Like, okay, raise your hand, and they're all raising their hand, ask a question, and some of them were like afterwards, like, okay, like, boy, you guys are, and they are like, we're going to schedule a meeting with you afterwards because we want to discuss this legislation. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful to see, like, and they saw, okay, this group, they're engaged, they know the issues, and you know what else? We were saying, we want to help. We want to support. It wasn't there to just criticize. We were asked, what do we do? How do we support?
Yeah.
And they loved it, because a lot of times we will ask of our state legislators, hey, go out on a limb and support saving girls' sports. Yeah, that's a 70% issue, right? 70% of normal people say, absolutely, we don't want boys and girls sports. We don't want boys and girls locker rooms. However, when they introduce that legislation, our side doesn't show up to test. They don't go to the committee hearings. They weren't, at least. Mm-hmm. But the other side, every Capitol is in usually a pretty liberal, progressive area. It's usually near a big college campus. So the clown cars will show up, and hundreds, if not thousands of people will show up opposing that legislation, making their lives just unbearable. So that's why they don't like to do it, because they're like, well, I'm doing this. Where are you?
Right. Who supports? Does anybody really support this? You're trying to represent the people, and no one shows up to speak. I saw that serving on a school board. You know, we'd have literally 1,000 in my school board meeting, Red for Ed, Moms Demand Action, protesting. And I'd be like, is there anyone out here that would like me to vote the other way? And crickets. Yeah. I'd called up the GOP. Is there anybody over there that would like to come down and support this? Do you want me to vote for it? Well, we're interested in this and that, and we're in foreign policy. I'm like, this is your local school. It's our biggest budget in the county. Yes. It is the biggest employer in our county. Yes. It is the most important thing that's happening right now. Well,
half of your property taxes, biggest employer. It's huge, and no one was showing up, and that's kind of what I realized, that a lot of these things happen because I never showed up before. And so we can't get complacent. We have to show up. Yeah, you might miss. Sometimes I miss one of my kids' games because it's a school board meeting or because there's something I need to do. But that's something, like, you don't want to do too much of that, but every once in a while you have to do that. Or you'd rather be home.
I'd rather be doing anything
else. These are not fun meetings. Committee hearings,
sometimes
they go 13 hours long.
Yeah.
Not fun. Although they can get very interesting, especially when it's about the gender identity issues, because the people that come to talk, it's very interesting. You have to see it.
Let's fast forward to just this last year. 2024, Wisconsin was one of Moms for Liberty's focus states. To see what it would look like for Moms for Liberty to activate voters on the issues around education, around parental rights. And so you became a state ambassador, along with 3 others. We had 4 state ambassadors there. And you led the charge statewide to get out the vote, not for any specific candidate, but for any candidate that happened to stand with parents and support girls only in girls' sports and girls only in girls' bathrooms, and support the right of a parent to fundamentally, like the fundamental right of a parent to direct the upbringing of their children. So there was only so many of those on the ballot. And so we were able to point to that. So tell me what did that look like for you to go from mom who didn't know her school board existed, basically, voting only in presidential elections when they were prime time and in the front and center, driving a minivan, 5 kids, to state ambassador for Moms for Liberty, engaged in getting out the vote, basically, for probably the most important presidential election. I know everybody says it, but truly,
it really was.
We were in a really bad track. So what does that? What was last year like for you?
First of all, there's a series of things. So all of that with Moms for Liberty, but also I became a chair in my county party, in the county Republican Party. So I got involved. Didn't like what was happening there. So again, let's go. Then we have to go in and we have to fix it. We have to change it. We have to run for these positions. We have to attend county meetings. I became a delegate I ran and won a position to be a delegate for the Republican
getting involved everywhere.
President. Yeah, so I was on the floor when Trump was nominated. I was involved. I got to learn and meet people and have relationships. Worked closely learned to work with the Republican Party, young Republicans, and also TPUSA, Turning Point, doing events with other like-minded
building coalitions,
C4s like Turning Point, America for Prosperity, all of them, and especially because Turning Point. They have a lot of the younger activists, and so moms, and it all worked out. We were all fighting for the same things, and so you build coalitions, you get involved in your county party, and I started to develop a good name that I'm willing to work, willing to put the effort out there, willing to support, not be negative, to try to just be positive, be a positive force for change, always joyful, joyful warriors. Like even that it's really important. Being joyful doesn't mean that you're not strong, passionate, that determined.
Doesn't mean you don't fight back. You said you fought back, but you can fight back with a smile on your face.
Yes.
You can fight back joyfully. You can stand your ground. And I think you do that very, very well. So just tell me about the experience of 2024. So you're now involved in the Republican Party. You're leading Moms for Liberty. You're one of 4 state ambassadors. And somehow I see you, I guess, officially on the Trump train, right?
Yes, and I made a lot of friends.
Yeah, or the Trump bus or the Trump train, or whatever you want to call it.
I was the only woman. First of all, I was the only woman among all of these men, the great men. They were really, really nice. But
so how do you get on the Trump train? How do you go from soccer mom to being...
I got a call.
Speaking. I see you at the rallies. I see you with President Trump. I see you in front of the bus, all of these places. Like, how do you get there from there?
I got a call. Like, Scarlett, are you willing? We need you. We would love to have a mom that's willing to speak about the issues that you care about. These are, and frankly, they knew. They looked at the polling. They noticed some things, that every time President Trump mentioned saving girls' sports,
our issues made it to his platform, his top, whatever it was, 10 or 15.
Erupted. Yep. When he talked about critical race theory, DI, the crowd erupted.
So they looked around Wisconsin and they said, who's a woman that's representing this that we can bring on the team? And they called
me. They called me. And my husband, who's a saint, because this was a lot of time away from my family. Sure. And he's like, do it. You got to do it. You need to do this. This is what you wouldn't be happy doing anything else. And frankly, I loved it. I mean, we traveled all throughout Wisconsin. I went to counties in Wisconsin I didn't even know existed. And Wisconsin is really beautiful. I realized how beautiful my state was. And I am more passionate for my state now than ever when I saw that there's so many rolling farms and hills and beauty. And yet in these areas that are mostly conservative, there's drag queen story hour. There's a boy undressing in front of girls in a locker room. The stories I heard, the stories that even to this day, they'll say, oh, that didn't happen. I know they happened because I looked in the eyes of the parents, tearful eyes, begging me, Scarlett, help me. When you have several hundred people doing that, it became like a passion. Like, I had to do it. I have to help. I have to find a way to help. And traveling my state, I realized that this is really important. And the issues I'm talking about are important. There were parents that told me I wasn't going to vote in the election. I really just was sick of politics. But then I saw you speak and I talked to you. And not only did I vote, I took 10 people with me. And that just made everything worth it.
And then you took those stories, and other chapter leaders in the 22 chapters around the state took stories from parents, and they sent them locally to other people to say, this is happening in your school, down the street, the most local issues, via text, via postcards, via emails. We helped at the national level amplify that with you all.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
We were reaching a group that isn't reached by all of the sort of the big
250,000 voters we identified in your state, and just shared with them what was going on. Like, people, how did you get them to turn out to vote? Well, we just we just told them what was happening.
Yeah.
And you all did it locally on the ground with people in your community. And the messages came from you. You did videos that said, this, my community, let me tell you what's happening down here. And then we would push that out via text in different ways. And what would you say, what was the result of that by election day of those 250,000 voters?
We had, I believe, was it a 93% turnout rate among the voters we contacted? It was 93 or 94%.
Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you, Scarlett, the ambassadors, the chapters in Wisconsin. You, in my opinion, delivered Wisconsin for sanity. Like you always like to say, team sanity. That's what you say.
Well, I say thank
sanity.
you. Thank you for fighting for us. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to have these resources that we had wanted so much. Thank you for listening to grassroots. So many organizations say that they want to help and then they don't follow through, but you followed through with your leadership with Moms for Liberty. You came through for us and proved that if grassroots organizations like ours, if we have the resources, we can make a difference. You don't need the big flashy things sometimes. Like it is the people on the ground that know their community that can make a difference. Someone comes in from California and says, "Oh, hey, vote." In your Wisconsin, I'm going to tell you, that's not going to work.
It doesn't work in most places in the
country. You're not
country.
going to be able to go to St. Croix County and say, "I'm from New York, you should vote for so-and-so." That's not going to work. They want to see people from their state that they trust. And you have to build that relationship. And I and members of my team, the other ambassadors, we spent a lot of years building relationships, putting the time in, not seeing the fruits of that work. Now we're seeing it. And boy, when that harvest comes, it's a beautiful thing to see.
So I would say you've had some lows, but some huge wins in Wisconsin.
Huge.
Would you say it's all been worth it so far?
Oh my gosh. I'd do it again. I'd do it again a million times over.
Would your family say it's all worth it so far?
Yes, they would. They would say it's worth it. They are really proud of me. And I've got a 16-year-old. Okay, 16-year-old. Her friends follow me and they say, "Your mom is so based." Like she just says,
"Do you have the shirt? You need the shirt."
I know. Mom is
There's
based.
a based shirt. Maybe we need a based shirt.
My daughter says all the time, and she's like, "And all the teachers know who you are." So
for good or for bad, right?
For good, it's good. Like there's and many of them say when I go and they're like, "Thanks, everything you're saying is true."
So good. So words of wisdom. For parents that are listening right now, for those that are still on what we like to say, their comfy couch, just wishing somebody else would take care of it in their community, words of wisdom for them.
I would say get involved because it's fun. To be honest, like it is fun. You meet new people, you make a change.
Getting called names is fun. Getting called.
The other side of that is fun. And you know what? You get used to it. It's a badge of honor. It's like it's if you haven't lived till you've been called a racist, homophobe, transphobe, bigot,
all in one evening.
All in one evening. They're going to call names, but you're standing in truth. Sticks and stones, right? Yeah, it stinks, but it's okay because you're doing it for all the right reasons. Think about the civil rights movement. The parental rights movement is the civil rights movement of our time. Look at what Dr. Martin Luther King went through. They were called names. People threw things at them. But they stood for what they believed in. And the joyful warrior, the peaceful, that I'm going to stand. I don't care, whatever, come what may, I'm still going to stand. That won the hearts and minds of America. And we are doing that right now. Remember 2022, they designated us as a hate group, and now it's like, whatever. Yeah. Whatever.
What's your fire? What lights that fire? So that, this show is the fire of liberty. And so we're going to wrap it up here with
love for my country, love for my family. I love what is in front of me. It's not that I hate what's behind me. I don't hate. I love. And I have to fight for the things that I love. And I love this country. And I love I love everything about it. I love going to DC. My heart sings everything that we stand for. We are the greatest country in the world, and I refuse to. Ronald Reagan said, we don't want to be the generation that sits on the porch and tells our grandchildren what America was like when we used to be free. I refuse to let that happen. This is the Alamo. There is no back door. The only way out is through. If you don't pick a side will pick you. So pick a side with us. And if you're not a member of Moms for Liberty, you need to be, because, you will have friends, you will have fun, and you will have a purpose, and you'll make a change.
Okay. I think that's a pretty solid ending to a fantastic interview. I appreciate you coming all the way to Florida, to the beach. I know it was really hard.
Oh yeah,
hard to come down here out of Wisconsin.
It's raining there right now.
And join me for our very first episode. I just love talking to you. It's just an honor to have you as a member of Moms for Liberty and representing Moms for Liberty. Just as a side note for everyone else, Scarlett now is also running our social media, which is a huge relief, because we honestly, as well as we've done on social media up until now, it has been piecemealed by several of us trying to just keep it afloat. And so I'm so excited. Thank you for stepping up again and being willing to serve. We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about our new podcast and where this is going to go, and our new studio. And so, America, get off your comfy couch, get out and be like our Wisconsin warrior, Scarlett.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I love the direction we're taking, and that we're involved in new media now too. So
it's wonderful. Thanks, Scarlett, for being here.
Thanks for having me.